the mute stuff and how that works. Make sure you're muted unless you're talking, and then if you talk, don't forget to unmute, all that good stuff.
I think we're ready, Mr. President.
All right. Ms. Boozer, if we could go ahead and get a roll call, just make sure we have a quorum
Okay, Jason Warren,
present.
Carlos Cave, Daryl Owens,
Present.
Nicholas Pearson,
Present.
Hezekiah Massey,
Present.
Adam Langford,
Present.
Adrian Bush,
Present.
Kobe Brandyberg,
Present.
J.R. Green,
Yeah.
Tony Folk, David Byrd,
Present.
Kyle Buskowski,
Present.
Andy Rogers,
Present.
and Sam Barfell.
Present.
So that gives us how many total?
12.
12, good. So we do have a quorum. We will go ahead and call this meeting to order. Again, since we're Zoom and people are at home, just a reminder about using your mute, staying muted, unmuting, things like that. Sometimes screens are hard for me to see. So if I don't see you on a question, especially today because of the format of my screen, and you need to unmute and just sort of let us know verbally the question answered, that would be great. We don't want to miss anybody's questions. Is Airport High School here?
Yes, they are. Are we ready to bring them in?
We're ready. Yes. All right. Representatives from Airport High School are in the room, I believe. Is that correct?
That is correct. Matt Schiller,
Great.
principal.
Nice to meet you. Before we begin, I just need to read the following statement. In accordance with the Freedom of Information Act, the High School League posted and provided notices of this hearing and the stated agenda. Copy of the notice will be attached to the minutes of this meeting. Pursuant to South Carolina Code Section 3460, every meeting of all public bodies shall be open to the public unless one of the criteria delineated in South Carolina Code annotated 3470 is at issue. Unless the facts and evidence presented in this appeal involve any discussion of employment, appointment, compensation, promotion, demotion, or release of an employee, a student, or person regulated by a public body, or the appointment of a person to a public office, this hearing shall proceed in public view of those in attendance at this public hearing. At this time, do you wish to proceed in open session or closed session?
Open session's fine.
All right. We will go on open. The appeals process will proceed pursuant to the rules and regulations outlined in the bylaws of the South Carolina High School League, found on pages 1 and 2 of the bylaws. Before proceeding, I need to ask you to please state what your appeal request is.
My appeal request is to allow Brooklyn Casey High School cheerleaders to compete with Airport High School for the upcoming school year and beyond due to them no longer having a competitive cheer team.
All right, so I write in real quick. And you're appealing the 4A class executive committee's decision to deny, correct?
But just for a classification.
Yes.
That's correct.
All right. Finally, are there any members of the executive committee who believe they need to recuse themselves from this appeal? There are no questions by the school or committee members. The school may present its appeal at this time. If you would, please limit your presentation to 10 minutes to allow for questions and discussion. You may introduce your presenters and begin.
Well, as I said briefly at the beginning, I am Matt Shillett. I'm principal at Airport High School. I'll be doing the presentation today, but on this call, we do have our Lexington II Superintendent Brenda Hafner and Brooklyn Casey High School's Principal Barry Bolin. Hopefully everyone had the opportunity to review the briefing I sent regarding why we're here today, but if not, I did email it out. And I'm here today to talk with the executive committee about making sure that we're providing opportunity for students at Brooklyn Casey High School. To go a little bit in the past, Brooklyn Casey High School's principal reached out to me many months ago to share that unfortunately they were no longer going to have a competitive cheer team. And as I listed, it's due to a variety of reasons, to include graduating seniors. A lot of their students are enrolling in a local 2A charter school to compete there, and their competitive cheer coach has left the position and will no longer be there. This leaves a few remaining cheerleaders that wish to continue their chosen sport and compete. Obviously, Airport High School is the other high school in Lexington too. We already combined in areas such as our swim teams. And when Mr. Bolin presented it to me, I agreed with the request and the fact that we're only talking about a couple kids, presented it to our region, which was unanimously approved, then took it to the 4A classification, and it was not approved. It was voted down. I did talk with Robert Jackson, the president of 4A, about that. And that's kind of how we've ended up in this position we are today. I do want to share to the executive committee that from my understanding, there was some misunderstandings with regards to the 4A vote, that it was, some people were under the impression that the entire Brooklyn Casey High School competitive cheer squad was going to be joining Airport's 4A squad. That is inaccurate. It's just a couple girls that are wishing to continue again their chosen sport, and they are not interested, and understandably so, in having to change schools, considering that that is their school that they've been at since they've been in high school. They've been, the ones we're talking about have been cheering there since 7th grade. And again, between family legacies and the fact that that is their high school, and I know that we offer this opportunity in other sports, other neighboring districts do the same for sports that aren't offered in schools, is why we're trying to provide opportunity and do what's right for the students, for those girls at Brooklyn Casey High School. My appeal today is also to make sure that we remain in 4A. I did put that in my letter. Since we're not talking about, again, an entire team, we're talking about a couple of young ladies. That is, we're not interested in moving up the classification with regards to this request. But then again, to summarize, we've got a couple girls from Brooklyn Casey High School who currently don't have the opportunity to compete in cheerleading moving forward because there would be no team at Brooklyn Casey High School. Again, we're right down the street at Airport High School. We would like to provide the opportunity for these girls to try out, and if they make the team, compete with us moving forward, since BC no longer has a cheer squad. And that's a brief summary of why we're here today. I'm appealing to the executive committee because I think it would be the right thing to do for these couple girls to be able to continue their chosen sport.
All right, Mr. Shillett, do you feel you've had the opportunity to present all the necessary information for your appeal with us?
I do, yes, those are the facts.
All right. At this time, we will open the floor for questions, and I'll just lead off with a few that I have. You had mentioned you had talked with the principal a few months ago about the possibility. Do you remember, does not have to be exact date, when your initial combination request went to your region and then to the classification, about what month-ish beginning?
Yeah, and this is just a rough guess without looking at my email, but we took it to our region probably, I'd say you're probably talking 2 to 3 months ago, and then the region vote that we found out by email that we didn't get it was easily a month ago, probably. And I do have those official dates in my email if you need it.
I don't. So about a month ago, the classification denied.
That's correct.
Was there any reason for the delay in requesting the appeal to us? I'm just more curious than anything.
You talking about on my end?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we were just gathering to make sure we had an appropriate case to bring forward to y'all. We were doing our research, and I was really a bit surprised that 4A turned it down. So I was just doing my research to kind of figure it out. And then that's how I got that information about, they thought we were talking about their whole squad, or at least some of the voters, their whole squad. So just wanted to put together an appropriate presentation and appeal, which is why we've come to this spot here today.
And do you have, could you tell me the enrollment, do you have in front of you the enrollment for Airport High School and the enrollment for Brooklyn Casey?
So Airport High School is about 1,400 students, and Brooklyn Casey High School, and now this is just a sheer guess, but they've got to be somewhere in around 1,000 to maybe 1,100, somewhere in that range. They're 3A and we're 4.
Okay. All right. Other questions?
Already have combined teams as well. Like you've already combined in other sports, but this one was denied. And you feel like that denial was predicated on the idea that they thought the entire team was coming over? They were misinformed?
Yes, sir. That's like I said, when I found out it was denied, I was a bit surprised. So I did reach out to some people, obviously, and the information I got back was that the message was not forwarded on, that we're not talking about 24 girls from BC coming to join Airport, because the most are going elsewhere. We were talking about just a couple. Yes, sir. And we do already combine like in sports like swim.
Okay. But I guess at that point, there was you couldn't retroactively go back and allow people to revote at that time. There couldn't have been another meeting to have a revote once that information was given to the groups, I guess.
When I reached out to the high school league on it, they told me this was next.
Okay.
Question on that. This is for the commissioner. Commissioner, I know that I have some questions for him about the process and the couple of kids. Am I correct? That may be the intention, but in reality, if we combine schools, any student at Brooklyn Casey, in whatever process they have, can cheer for Airport, correct?
Yes, sir. Once you do a combination of schools, then it opens it up to make every student eligible to compete at the school. That's because you combine schools. Actually,
Mr. Schiller, sorry.
the actual figures that help us to shill it out. Actually, we only count grades 9 through 11 for realignment purposes, and combined Airport and BC, that number would actually be right at 2,074.
So there'd be 2,000 just 9 through 11?
Yeah, combined 2,074.
On the process, Mr. Schiller, speaking of which, that your statement kind of made me curious. Have y'all already had competition cheer tryouts at Airport High School?
Yes, sir. That's a good question. And yes, we have. Tryouts have already occurred. Now, if you're asking me if there's a couple available slots, our team is not full up to capacity. But yes, Airport has held tryouts, minus the students we're talking about now, because obviously they couldn't try out. But we have a team in place for the upcoming year. And that is currently where we're at. Yes.
How would you handle, curious, I know it's obvious you don't anticipate this happen, but what if you had 8 girls from Brooklyn Casey who wanted to try out? Perhaps some had, maybe they cheered JV, or maybe they just moved in and hadn't cheered. They're not on the Casey team. What will you do, or what process would y'all use to handle the combination at this point? As I know competition cheer, it sounds like you've got your team. You're probably already started stuff. How would you handle that?
Well, they would, my coach would have a difficult decision to make, because they would be run through the same trial and critiquing and judging that the Airport and middle schoolers that are zoned for Airport went through. To answer your question, we don't have 8 slots left for varsity cheer, competitive cheer at Airport. So she would have a difficult decision to make if the number went from 2 to 8 or 6 or whatever number we're talking about, because we don't have the room for that. We already have the majority of the slots taken. So my coach, after putting them through the exact same thing for tryouts that she put our Airport kids through, would have to make some decisions.
So y'all don't anticipate having to, I guess, say you get 2 extra kids, more slots you have, maybe it's not like a bunch, but you're not gonna break the team up and rehold tryouts for everybody and then select the top 24. You're gonna have Airport's team. And if you have to, you'll have a Brooklyn Casey tryout and just take a certain number of the Brooklyn Casey kids who make it that way.
That is correct. And her and I already had that conversation. These kids at Airport have already been notified that they made Airport varsity cheer, for example, and that will not be taken away. It would be a separate tryout if this is approved for the students that are interested. Like I said, whether it's 2, 6, 8, even though I was told 2, you know, we'll see. But I was told it's just 2. And if they make it based off the criteria, they do, but not a single Airport kid will be changed or moved from varsity to JV, for example. That will not happen.
Just a follow-up question in terms of the variable of a new kid moving in or students who may, enroll at a later date. And I guess I heard you say that you've held tryouts and you have X number of slots available, but the variable still exists in terms of giving those students with the combination of schools the opportunity to participate if this is allowed. What were the reservations of moving to a higher class now in terms of the combination of schools does put the enrollment, albeit not all of those kids are participating, but what would be the reservations of moving up to the different class?
And it's actually an easy answer for me. It's a different ballgame up in 5A chair compared to 4A chair. We do well in 4A chair and we're competitive. When you start talking about just adding 2 students to the team that I know that we had and have had in the last several years, again, we've done very well in 4A. You take the squad and put them in 5A and you know, just the top 3 of last year, for example, you know, the Lexingtons and the River Bluffs and Chapins of the world. We're just not on that level, nor do we have the pull for kids to compete at that level. And it would completely change our program and how we do competition wise.
Michelle, I know you said that 4A denied you because they didn't have perhaps some of that information about number of kids. Do you think it was also possible that all the principals or ADs in 4A who voted to deny had the same concern you have about going to 5A, about you guys combining into I think kind of a large 5A, not even a small 5A, but the equivalent of a large 5A school and then continuing to compete in 4A?
Without one of them telling me that, I would say that's fair, and I'm sure that someone has that. Again, we've been very competitive in 4A. You know, there are several schools that, you know, some weeks they beat us, some weeks we beat them. So some of them, you know, I saw how they voted, and it's very possible that as far as competitive wise, they were thinking that. Again, they didn't know that we were talking about at least 2 kids, but to answer your question, based off some of the teams that I know how they voted, since we flip flop each week, I can see that.
Other questions?
Go ahead.
Follow up. What 2 questions actually, Ms. Schultz. If this were approved, but approved with moving up in the classification, would y'all accept that?
No, I'm not interested in moving up to 5. That'd be unfair to my cheerleaders. I won't do it.
Okay. My second question is, the past 3 years, where have you finished at? Just curious in your past 3 years.
Yeah, this past year we finished 6th in the state. The year before we were 3rd in the state, and the year before that somewhere I think we were around 7th the year before that. So we've been in the top 10 the last 3 years.
Thank you, sir.
With that being said, it does seem that the squad as it stands is pretty competitive, and I guess, you know, some of the reservations that we spoke to just now may have been related to, you know, possibly achieving a competitive advantage over other schools with the combination. Mr. Warren or Commissioner Singleton, I probably need some help in walking through this motion, but at this time, I'd like to move to allow for the combination to be accepted with participation at the 5A level.
So we'll have a call for a motion once we're done with the questions.
Yep.
Mr. Warren, I do want to say, if you go back to my official appeal letter, and I heard the motion, my official appeal letter states that this request is to remain in 4A. And I would say if that motion is on the table, and again, we're not there yet, I understand that, that is not something that I wish to do to Airport High School, not for 5A.
Yeah, I understand.
Mr. Schiller, when you guys combine for the swim, do you have to swim up? Do you swim at 5A or do you swim at 4A with that
We swim.
combination?
We don't swim up.
Okay.
Mr. Schiller, I'm just curious. You said that you've already held tryouts and you have a very competitive squad, obviously. Why did you not fill all your slots during trial?
That's a good question. She, and her and I talked about that as well. She kept every girl that she felt was ready and deserved to be on varsity, which wasn't at capacity. And then she has a full JV squad as well, as she's looking to build for the future as well. So there's a couple of kids she did not think were ready for varsity competition. She left on JV and then again to build for the future. So do we have a complete team right now? Like, could we compete? Absolutely. But is there room for a couple more? There could be. Yes. There's not room for 8 though. But meaning meaning as of today, she's very comfortable and set with who she put on varsity and who she put on JV. I can tell you that.
But I think we would all agree, as anyone who has coached, that sometimes you have some kids on varsity who aren't necessarily ready for varsity, just to fill a roster. So I would be perplexed as to why she would just say she's not going to fill spots on varsity and then put kids on JV unless there was some assumption that you were getting kids from someplace else.
So I see what you're thinking. So I can just answer that, meaning if you asked her squad is full, meaning we're competing with the same amount of girls that just made our squad is who we ran out there at the state championship last year. So she's very comfortable and content with the number we have, whether it's 24, 26. I'm just going back to that earlier question because I get what you're saying, and I can see why you're thinking that. Is yes, the question led to, could we have a tryout and could a couple more make the squad? Yes, but what I'm saying is she's good. We're good with our team, meaning we got the same numbers we did last year. So if we had a competition in 2 weeks, that's the squad we'd roll out, and we're happy with our numbers. If that answers your question.
All right, thank you, sir.
How can you speak to how Brooklyn Casey cheer has done the past at 3A level?
I also believe that they have finished high. I can go to the last 2 years. I believe last year they were definitely in the top 5. And then the year before that, I believe they were top 10. I can't go past that one though. I only know about the last 2 in 3A.
And is your JV squad, if there are girls from Brooklyn Casey who would like to participate in competition cheer at the JV level, how have y'all thought how you are going to handle that?
So we would have to do that. That's also a great question. We'd have to do the same process as we're doing for varsity. Obviously, I hadn't had any conversations with BC. The only ones I've had is these 2 competitive girls that are on varsity. But yes, it would have to be the same process. And then also my same answer applies. Our JV squad has got a lot of girls as well. So there's not opportunity for many.
Do you know if Brooklyn Casey had a JV competition cheer in the past?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't remember seeing them last year, but that doesn't mean they didn't have them. But I only remember their varsity last year.
And do you know, and you may not know this either, do you know if Brooklyn Casey intends to have basketball cheerleaders and sideline cheer at the football games?
I don't know the answer to that.
Do you have a way, you had mentioned there might be some people around you that you could get to. Do you have a way of finding out that answer?
Well, actually, they're on this call, so they can answer it now.
Okay.
Yeah,
Anybody from Brooklyn Casey?
yeah, I'm Barry Bowen. I'm the principal of Brooklyn Casey.
Yes, sir.
We combine our varsity and middle school cheerleading teams for competitive cheer and spirit cheer. So we have students who make the competitive team all those girls are on the spirit team, but all the spirit cheerleaders are not on the competitive team. So yes, we had two squads, competitive squad and spirit squad. We have already had tryouts this year for our spirit squad. We simply did not have enough girls to field a competitive team due to graduation. We lost 6 seniors. We lost 2 or 3 girls to transfer in the district, and we lost our coach. And all this happened pretty late in the year. And so I was approached by two girls, one's a rising senior and one's a sophomore, who wanted to be on a competitive team. And they approached me about, could they possibly join Airport's team, because we already share Innovation Center. The coach works at Innovation Center where our kids, both our high school kids, go to school there, and they already familiar with each other. And so I don't want to ramble, but we are currently trying to rebuild our competitive squad. So we intend after next year to put our competitive squad back in place, but it's going to take some time to build it due to a new coach and due to the attrition. So we do have a spirit team. We'll be cheering football, basketball. And at the same time, we have a couple of girls left over there that are going to help build the BC team back up. These other 2 girls that want to be on the Airport team have already made the competitive squad team several years earlier and are skilled cheerleaders and simply want to participate this year next year in a competitive squad, which we are unable to have. So that's kind of how this happened. I personally feel this is strictly a 1-year request, and for competitive cheer only, and for specifically for 2 students, one who's a rising senior who just wanted to go out with what she loved to do, and the other one is really enjoyed the competition and wanted to be a part of it. So that's where we are.
So just to make sure I understand, y'all will these students who are going to combine with Airport for competition, will they also be on your spirit squad and can be able to get the feel for both?
Yes. If you're on the competitive squad, you're also on the spirit squad. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yep. And then you mentioned that your coach works at that Innovation Center. Do both of the cheerleaders that y'all believe will take advantage of this opportunity? Did I hear right? They kind of already know that coach. There's a little bit where the coach kind of knows the kind of student, so there's a little bit more confidence in them being able to make it.
Yes, sir. The coach here teaches a tumbling class and actually works in a local gym. And so these girls have been taking lessons from this particular coach all along, which is why they're ready. And so have the other kids at the Airport. We've kind of been in classes outside of school because that's their interest and that's what they like to do. So when we approached the coach who's at the Innovation Center, she immediately said, "Oh yes, I've been working with those girls for several years." So it was already just such an easy fit and what we thought would be an easy solution to a temporary problem.
Do they do the, some of those gyms have where you work out, and then some of them have travel competition squads. Do you know if they do that as well?
I really don't know. I don't know. I think they just take classes, individual gymnastic classes and tumbling and acrobatic kind of things and stuff like that. I'm not aware of any competition.
Okay. Do either Mr. Shillett or Mr. Bowen, do y'all know, is it typical when y'all use that gym with your competition squad? Do Brooklyn, Casey, and Airport, have they always combined already in like their outside gym tumbling practices and things like that?
I don't want to quote, exactly who goes when. I do know that they all do work together. I mean, it's community place, and they choose to take classes there, like a local dance studio, for example, and all that. So yes, they definitely know each other, and I've definitely come across each other in that same spot. It's one of our local places. Yes.
Ms. Boozer, I had a quick question that you may not be able to answer, but I think with your cheer experience, maybe you could. But if you can, I totally understand. Do you know the difference or what the differences would be between those local cheer gyms that we're kind of describing and their competition teams that they allow students to participate in, and the high school experience of what the league offers school competitive teams?
Right, you're talking about the outside teams that the gyms do. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what they do and so forth. I don't follow the All-Star.
That stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Reason I ask is because I almost feel like if they're on their high school's spirit squad, So they get that aspect of cheer. Cheer is an unusual sport. They also, we know, at least these girls belong to a gym, and those gyms offer a competitive teams because they just do. There's an option no matter how this goes. It's not necessarily a child who can't compete. It's just a child who can't compete for a different school than they go to. Possibly can't compete for a state championship at a high school they don't go to, but not necessarily that they can't compete. It's just something that was occurred to me. Other questions?
Yeah, I just have a question for the two principals. Can you guys understand why other schools in 4A would be a concern for them? I understand that the representation is that we're only talking about 2 students, and I'm not really questioning the representation, but we're now creating essentially a super school, 2,000 kids competing against schools that are considerably smaller. Can you guys see if the shoe was on the other foot and it was a different sport we were talking about, would you not have some of the same concerns?
Yeah, I absolutely can see, which is, like I said, when I saw the votes and was a little surprised, I definitely thought about the competitive piece, and, we've got some built-in healthy rivals, in 4A, some local, some in different parts of the state. So yes, to answer your question, yeah, I do see it. I just wanted, like I said, I just want to make sure it's known. It's not a super team, that we're proposing if we're talking about, the 2 kids, but I do get it if their 24, however many they had last year, was coming to join our 24 and trying to make this powerhouse squad. But to answer your question, I absolutely understand. We all think about it all the time with some other people in our state, so I get it.
I understand as well. I'd just like for you to consider that we're talking about 2 students and we're talking about 1 year only.
Yeah, I hear you. I just, obviously the optics of it is a concern, because the reality is we aren't limiting it to 2 students. That may be the 2 that we're thinking of, and that may be the only 2 that ultimately do this, but we're opening it up to 1,000 students approximately. I mean, that's what we're doing. Now I recognize, and it's no different in any sport, we do classifications. Not every kid who goes to name the school plays a sport. But they still count in the tallies. So that's my reservation. I mean, to me, before, it was very clear that you guys aren't interested in competing up. It seemed like a very simple solution to just allow the 2 young ladies to participate, move you guys to 5A where your numbers would be comparable, and everyone seemingly would be happy. But obviously you guys don't want to do that. So that's my reservation, looking at how does this affect the other 4A schools. And obviously the other 4A schools felt very strongly that it affected them negatively, based on the vote tally. So that's my only reservation. I hear what you guys are saying. I appreciate what you're saying. I certainly recognize that the representation is, and I think it's a truthful representation, that we're only talking about 2 girls at this point. But that's not what we're doing. Those are my concerns.
Mr. Bowl, I'm just curious, how many competitive cheerleaders did you lose to the local charter school?
I believe it was 4, and most all of them were girls that coming up from the middle school. So the younger kids too that we were counting on. The other attrition, we had 6 seniors graduate. So that we pretty much lost our team with the combination of those 2 things. And we're fighting to keep our programs, which helps us keep students. And when you lose students because they can get something at another school that our district cannot provide for them, we lose students. I think we're going to have to get more. I understand everything everyone's saying, and I don't disagree with you, but where we are in public schools right now with choice and all this transfer, we're going to need to be a little bit more creative if we expect to level the playing field in our community. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I got one question. What's the reservation from opening it up instead of from 2 students, opening up to all 1,000 students at your school to go ahead and get the best girls you can to compete at the 5A level and kind of entertain some of the other emotions we may see in a few minutes?
I understand that reasoning, but to answer your question, I was here when we tried to keep the competitive cheer team in the spring, And we only had 2 girls that were willing to look at going to airport. Now, if we to try to field a team, we might have had 6, maybe 7, but you can't compete with fewer than 14, or really 24, I think is what you want. So I don't know where the other 1,000 will come from. We didn't even have it in our school in the spring, and competitive cheer has already been determined at airport. So it would have to be someone's kids that have already been a part of a competitive and know what it takes to be on a competitive team. And I can't see, other than these 2, anyone that could physically be capable of doing that in such a short period of time. It's not something, a skill you can develop in a short period of time. The competitive cheer is something that, in my opinion, takes several years to develop those skills. And so you're either there or you're not. And we have 2 that are.
And Nick, to kind of further answer in your question, because I think what you're asking about back up to 5A. Again, as principal at airport, I got to do what's in the best of the ones here as well. So I'm trying to do what's best for all kids. That would not be right on my end to move my squad up to 5A. I'm just not interested in doing that to Airport High School.
Yes, sir. I understand that wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Ms. Boozer, can I ask you a question technical about cheer? If 2 cheer teams, one has 21 and one has 24 members, and they perform exactly the same in theory, like the same amount of mess ups or the same amount of non-mess ups, all the same stunts, all the same stuff. Do the extra numbers from 21 to 24 give more points, or is that not how that works?
No, it's just when you put 24 on the mat, it allows you to be able to do more secondary, primary stunts and that type of thing. So that's just where that difference comes in.
So if you add 24, does it form another stunt group?
Yes.
And does that stunt group give you more points?
Yeah, it would be a difference if you have 6 stunt groups in the air versus 5.
So again, I guess it's a nuance. That's why I'm asking you. So a school that only had enough people to have 5 stunt groups that performed exactly the same as another group that had enough girls to have 6 stunt groups, would that school automatically score higher if everything else was equal?
No.
School with 5?
No.
So the only advantage is there an advantage at all to having a full squad?
And we have several schools that don't put 24 on the mat.
And just a quick follow-up, Ms. Boozer, how many of those schools who don't put 24 would be in sort of the elite class that these schools are consistently competing in the top 10? Would that be something?
Well, the schools that are usually in the top 10, especially our 4A and 5A, those are the classifications that are putting 24 on the mat.
Okay.
It's when
So
we get to the lower classifications that you don't always see that number.
Yeah, understand, totally understand. I guess so there aren't schools competing at 4A or 5A at the level that these schools have competed in the past with less than 24. Is that
not off the top of my head that I'm aware of? I mean, there may be a few in 4A that are competing, but they're probably not qualifying for the state.
okay? Thank you.
I just think it's important that we really look hard at the competitive advantage. I understand from the proviso, the high school league is looking now at addressing competitive advantage with some of the charter schools and others. So I believe it's very important that we make sure that no one is going to have a competitive advantage. And I know the league's going to be looking at that with some of the charter schools as we move forward and some of the specialty schools. So I'll just say, I think competition and fairness is extremely important.
And I just wanted to make a remark to Dr. Owens. In our last meeting, Mr. Green, or Dr. Green, I apologize. Dr. Green illuminated the idea that sometimes I think when we speak to competitive advantage, like in trying to do what's in the best interest, I guess, of charters, we're sometimes now doing things that are unfair to our kids. And I think this is kind of illuminating that idea. Like I agree that it would be kind of unfair to a 4A airport team that's very competitive to make an attempt to help two girls that just want to cheer their senior years for one of them. And one of them just wants to continue to cheer, but they have no opportunity to do that at their schools. But now if I take those two students on, I have to go up a whole nother class and compete there where I won't be as competitive, and I can go from having the potential of winning a state championship to now I having no chance of doing that. And I think that's unfair as well. So I think this just is yet another thing that speaks to us having to do something. And unfortunately, our hands are tied, but just about the competitive advantage that is, obtained at other places, but we still try to control it, within the things that we can control. Because what I heard is that a part of the dissolution of that team was due to, several girls going to a charter school. And there's no way to kind of, I guess, mitigate that competitive advantage. But we're trying to do it here with a 4 and 5A. And I just, in my humble opinion, I think that's unfair to those girls in Airport High School as well.
Just a reminder, just to all the committee members, we don't have a motion yet on the floor, so we're still asking questions at this point, not quite yet in discussion.
A quick question. This may be for.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Jason. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say that maybe because we were done with questions, and I was gonna see if we had more, but we do.
Okay, just one quick thing. This may be for Commissioner Singleton to add to it. Let's say that there's a motion and to keep them in 4A just like they are. They have their thing and there's 5 girls, 6 girls that make this team. Would Airport have the right to say if they had that many that they move up to 5A on their own?
No,
If it's more than that, Commissioner,
no,
just from their standpoint.
no.
Yes, sir. Okay. I just posed that hypothetically to see if this was more than what we potential to be of more than 2 girls, where would it be? So they would still be in 4A once we made that decision here today.
If you approve 4A, then that's where they'll compete, even if the whole team changes.
Yes, sir.
You combine,
Okay.
you're approving the combination of schools for those kids at both schools to create a team.
Yes, sir. Okay. I followed you. I thought I was right. I thought that was the case, but I didn't know if they would have an option after doing that to say, hey, we petitioned to be in 5A since we had more. That was I guess, the point. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I guess follow up then, Commissioner. I know that there was some discussion of the 5A stuff, which is not what they're interested in. But in theory, they would need to request that of 5A if they wanted that as well and go through some of that same stuff.
That's correct. Actually, the bylaws, I think, speaks to if the enrollment exceeds, they would have to play the next class up unless approved by the executive committee or unless approved by the classification to stay at the level that they want to be in. If in the absence of getting that, then their only option would be that they would compete at the 5A level. That's why they appear before this group, so that they don't have to compete at the 5A level. They won't ask that the exec committee makes the decision for the class that they compete at the 4A level.
So point of order question, just to make sure I know scenarios. If we deny this, obviously they could appeal to the appellate panel, but if we were to deny it and the appellate panel did deny it, can they still combine schools and automatically go to 5A and they don't have to do anything else if they wanted to?
Well, it does say that they will play at the bylaws does speak to that they would do it at the next classification level. They would have to play up to the next class.
If they wanted to.
Right.
So we would not have to make any specific issue with that in this committee. That's something that they could end up doing on their own without us if they wanted to, if we did not.
Yes, this sport is just so unique. Most of your sports, you have to qualify through region play, especially in the upper classification level. Well, this one doesn't require any region play to get a spot, to actually be able to qualify for the next level. It's an open qualification of where they could just they could just enter in. We just need to know, because we divide the schools down into, for lack of a better term, 2 qualifying sites. And we will be able to know who goes where.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a secondary question, and this might be for Mr. Massey. Mr. Massey, do you have any idea why, like when there was a combination already that's on the table, like for swim, that there wasn't a request or requirement to swim up or move to 5A? But in this particular case with competitive cheer, there's a request or requirement to move up. Do you have any idea why that might be the feeling of the classification?
Well, just in terms of cheer and the success that I believe, that has been explained in this meeting over the past few years, I'm not sure about the other sports, but with this, the reservation I believe did come from the fact that there could be possibly a competitive advantage in terms of 4A. In 4A and cheers is pretty much wide open each year. So in terms of, what the classification looked at, this might add just that extra bit of advantage to one school over any other that would put them, so far above the others that it wouldn't be fair. So in terms of the classification, that's pretty much, some of the thoughts in terms of folks I've had some conversations with.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other questions?
I've got a follow-up question. This is for Mr. Bolin. Mr. Bolin, how many competition cheer team members did Brooklyn Casey have last year?
I think it was 14. I wasn't there last year, so this current, I think we had 14.
10-4, thank you.
Other
And I have a
questions?
follow-up question for Mr. Shillett, just back on the swim combination, just would like to get more details. So it's my understanding that the two schools have a combination of a swim team. Do you know the numbers on your swim team and how that breaks down between the two schools and how that works logistically?
I don't have official numbers in front of me, but it is obviously, it's a smaller team. Airport probably put, without me counting a roster, somewhere in the range of 15 kids on that team last year. I would imagine BC was probably about the same. And obviously when you see us in a meet, we are definitely one of the smaller teams compared to a lot of the competitions we play. But I'd say it's approximately 15 or so kids from Airport, maybe a couple more that competed in swim, and probably the same for BC.
Thank you.
Clarification. We also had a charter school in our district who did not have a tennis team or tennis courts. So they were allowed to play on the BC tennis team with no appeals, with no moving up. And, I was just wondering what the difference might be.
Unfortunately, Mr. Bolin, I'll have to answer that one. That's by state law.
That explains that, yeah.
The membership had no authority over that piece.
Any other questions? Hearing no other questions, do we have a motion?
I make a motion to provide the opportunity to these two schools to combine their enrollment with the exception that they move up to 5A to compete. And again, that piece of it, albeit within the proposal, was not something that I believe was considered, but in terms of my motion, it would be to provide them the opportunity to combine schools with the of course, a requirement that they compete at the 5A level.
Point of order question, I guess, for Commissioner. Am I correct? That is what automatically happens if
That
they
happens.
choose to combine schools, if we deny. So do we need to do that, or like to make that happen?
Well-
Or is that just a approve or deny?
Basically, what it says that if it exceeds the largest school in that class, they cannot compete in that class unless the classification approves it otherwise. So the intent is then if there's a possibility, they would move up to the next class. As I said earlier, this one is unique because you don't qualify through region play. Had you had to qualify through region play, then there would have to be a discussion with the other class to permit this, for lack of a better term. But
So I guess just so Mr. Massey knows whether or not that motion, the way he worded it, is one we should use, or if it should just be cleaner, just to reduce everybody's conclusion. Do we need, if Mr. Massey is hoping that they still have, in essence, I don't want to speak for him, he's denying their appeal. He's granting them 5A play is what he's suggesting. Do we need to even do that, or that's just built in already? We either just need to deny or approve.
so that it's clear, because this body has the authority to make any decision that they choose to. So that it's clear, if this body says that you will compete at the 5A class level, then no school in the 5A class can draw a reservation to that. They don't have the authority to draw a reservation to that. Because they may come back and say, well, you know, this is big too. The largest school actually at the 5A level, if we count grades 9 through 11, of course, in the 2000s. But that if you count the grades 9 through 11 with Airport and Brooklyn Casey, they fall within the top 6 or 7 schools that would be in that class, grades 9 through 11.
So
Mr.
so
Moore.
that motion, we can do it that way. Mr. Massey has made a motion that we approve the combination at the 5A level only. There's nothing that's gonna mess up y'all's.
Mr. Warren, am I able to answer a question on that?
No, sir, not just yet. Not at this time. But back to you, Commissioner, there's no issue with us saying that.
Would you directing that if they're going to play beyond regular season to do it at the 5A level? There
Yes.
was no issue with that. That's correct.
Okay. So Mr. Massey, I'm gonna say back, but this may not have been the way that you said it, but because I did not take notes, because I wanted to double check that. Would you say that you're denying the request to combine at the 4A level and you are approving them to combine at the 5A level?
Right.
Write that real quick.
And Mr. President, just so I'm clear, if we did that, Airport wouldn't be required to combine. They would still have that option to stay in 4A and compete as a solo. Is that just with their students?
It's a reasonable question. Commissioner, this doesn't in any way, to do what Mr. Massey, if that were to be the motion that's approved, that doesn't, Airport still can say, hey, we're not combining.
That's correct. But they also have another option to appeal your decision to the appellate panel if it
Sure.
falls outside of what their request. If you don't grant the request exactly as they have asked for it, then they can appeal those decisions to another level.
All right. So we have a motion to deny their request to combine at the 4A level and to approve them to combine and compete at the 5A level. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Bukowski is a second. All right, we have a motion and a second to deny the request to combine schools at the 4A level, but to approve a combination at the 5A level, which opens the floor for discussion.
Just to kind of reiterate, the classifications did deny the initial request, albeit without all of the information, but the information received today, even with the clarity in the opinion of the classifications, was denied.
And like I was alluding to earlier, I'm not going to be able to support the motion because and again, this is just my personal opinion. I would hope that those young ladies have an opportunity to cheer, but not at the expense of me losing some of my, I don't want to call it competitive advantage, but if I'm good in a place and I've been good consistently, to now try to traverse up to another league where I probably won't be as good because I'm trying to harbor, if you would, two athletes that don't have a home. I can't support that motion. I think it would be unfair to do that as well.
I would like to piggyback off that as well. I kind of feel the same way. We have some competitive advantage right now that's being dealt with, but it's not. And for me to look at a couple of kids doing that, that's where I would have reservations supporting it as well. I know the lower classifications do it a lot, a little bit different situation. But at the end of the day, a couple of kids not being able to participate is where I kind of stand on that. And it's tough for me to support the motion in that standpoint. I would love the support for the kids to do it, but not that standpoint.
Two things I always like to bring up when we do these combinations and have them is one, very few people in this room are affected by this. Mr. Massey is one of the only ones who would be affected by it. And we just need to keep in mind it not to affect the vote. We just need to remember the people who will be affected by this denied it. Second thing I'd say is also keep in mind cheer is unique and that it sounds like they're going to get the one spirit cheer aspect of cheer at Brooklyn Casey and to be able to have that high school experience no matter what, which is fantastic. And nothing for this committee to be concerned about because they get to be at football games and basketball games if they choose to. And there is also unique to cheer opportunities to compete in cheer outside of interscholastic. And that is known. And it turns out that at least I believe what we heard was that the girls who are doing this already know a coach and work out at one of those places and have a long history of sort of a relationship with some of that going on. And so they're, whether or not they take advantage of it, I couldn't say, but there is opportunity for those students to compete in cheer without us approving this and a possible overturn. It's just something to consider for discussion. Other discussion? Hearing none, we have a motion to deny the request to combine schools at 4A level and to approve, if they wish, to combine at the 5A level. And we have a second. Hearing no further discussion, we are ready to vote. Ms. Boozer?
All right, Dr. Owens,
I vote yes for the motion.
Dr. Bethay,
I vote yes for the motion.
Mr. Pearson,
Yes.
Mr. Massey,
Yes.
Dr. Lanford,
Yes.
Mr. Bush, Mr. Bush,
No, I'm sorry.
Mr. Brandyberg,
Yes.
Dr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Byrd,
No,
Mr. Buskowski,
Yes.
Mr. Rogers,
Yes.
and Dr. Barfield.
Yes.
I have 10 yes votes, 2 no.
All right. What this means, Mr. Shillett, is that your request to combine schools has been denied. If you wish to combine schools and compete at the 5A level, that has been approved. You have the opportunity to appeal the executive committee's decision to the appellate panel. And if you wish to do so, please contact the league's commissioner within 24 hours of this hearing.
Mr. Warren, can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
I just want to make, I know the minutes are being taken. That's what, I know I said this earlier and I got the vote. I just want to make it clear to everyone on this call and then let the minutes reflect it, that my appeal, my official appeal, obviously, and I know it's our choice moving forward, but I just want to make it clear. 4A was the appeal. If 5A was my only option, there would have been no appeal, I guess is what I want the minutes to show. Airport High School will not be moving up to 5A. So I want the minutes to show that.
Understood. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
All right, Ms. Boozer has airport. Are we good? We're back in?
Yes, sir.
All right. Commissioner, I don't think there was any other business on the agenda for today.
There's none. Just share with those that are here that coming close to finalizing venues for football and basketball. Just still working out a few logistics. As I get that completed, I will send a report to you.
All right. Do I have a motion to close the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
And do we have a second to?
Second.
Second.
All right, all in favor, exit the screen.
All right.
See y'all guys. All right.
Thank you all.